A kid walks up to a famous man on the street, holding out a piece of paper like he just wants an autograph. The man smiles and reaches for a pen. That's when the kid pulls a gun instead and fires straight into his head. The crowd screams. Nobody expected this, and nobody knows if the man survives the next few hours. So how did one of the most powerful men in the city end up target practice for a child? Let's rewind and find out. In this version of Earth, New York never existed the way we know it. Instead, there's New Rome, a city run by elite families who preach strict morals in public while chasing every forbidden pleasure behind closed doors. Everyone else in the city just scrapes by in poverty. On top of one of the tallest buildings in New Rome, an architect named Cesar stood at the edge, ready to jump. Then he stopped time completely and stepped back from the ledge. He stared down at the ground, at the terrifying drop below him, and once he calmed down, he let time move again and the city kept living around him. Meanwhile, the mayor, a man named Cicero, was furious because the radio wouldn't stop talking about his money troubles. And on top of that, his daughter Julia had just posed nude for a photo shoot that was now everywhere. After a long night of partying, Julia tried to head home but found her route blocked. Cesar and his crew were about to demolish a building. When the explosives went off, Cesar froze time just to admire the blast up close. But Julia wasn't affected by his power at all, so she got to see the frozen explosion too, right before Cesar let time flow again. Sometime later, Cesar won a Nobel Prize for inventing Megalon, a groundbreaking new building material. His fame kept climbing, and it drove Cicero crazy, since his own approval ratings kept dropping and he saw Cesar as a direct threat to his career. One night, all the important names in the city gathered at the demolition site for a big event, covered by an ambitious journalist named Wow. Cesar's cousin Claudio clowned around and embarrassed the family, earning a scolding from his uncle Hamilton, the director of the National Bank. Hamilton had his own worries too, since rumors were spreading about Claudio having an inappropriate relationship with his own sisters. Cicero used the event to announce a massive new casino, only for Claudio's antics to ruin the moment yet again. Then Cesar showed up and reminded everyone he was the chairman of the design authority. He wanted to tear down and rebuild the entire city as a sustainable utopia using Megalon. But Cicero kept cutting him off, demanding realistic goals instead of fantasies. An argument broke out, and Cesar accused the whole system of only caring about the wealthy. Cicero fired back that Megalon itself was unstable and dangerous. When Cesar wouldn't back down, Cicero brought up something far more personal. Cesar's wife, who'd been poisoned years earlier and whose body had vanished without a trace. Cicero had prosecuted that case himself, convinced Cesar was guilty, but Cesar walked free, and now he called Cicero a slumlord to his face. Cicero completely lost it, and security had to drag him away while Julia scrambled to keep photographers from getting shots of her father falling apart. Afterward, at a fashion show, Claudio seethed with jealousy watching every woman in the room fawn over Cesar instead of him. That night, Cesar came home to find Wow waiting for him. She was tired of being his secret mistress, her career was stalling, and she wanted him to finally make things official, even telling him she loved him. But Cesar could only think about his dead wife, so he walked away. Alone, Wow turned on the TV and watched a replay of her own interview with Hamilton, noticing how he'd been flirting with her the whole time. The next day, Julia showed up at Cesar's office after sending him a letter, hoping to talk about what happened with her father. She noticed empty bottles scattered everywhere, plus prescription bottles. Clear signs Cesar wasn't doing well mentally. Cesar made it clear he didn't care for Julia, calling her spoiled and aimless, saying he preferred the company of people who actually thought for themselves. That stung enough that she revealed she'd seen him freeze time, and that it hadn't touched her at all. Suddenly interested, Cesar showed her a scale model of his utopia, and told her to walk through it with her eyes closed. In her mind, she saw a world where people lived in harmony with equal opportunity for everyone. And for the first time, she actually understood his vision. She wanted in. During a parade later on, Julia told her father she'd be working with Cesar, and Cicero called her a traitor on the spot. His mood got even worse when police paused the entire parade just to let Cesar's car cross the street. That night, Julia dug through old files and news articles about Cesar's wife's death. The official story said an insulin overdose, and the wrecked car had been pulled from the river, but somewhere during the investigation, the body itself disappeared. Desperate for real answers, Julia started tailing Cesar around the city. Claudio spotted her doing it and started following them both, snapping photos the whole way. Cesar's car eventually pulled into a rundown neighborhood, where he seemed to see visions of injustice everywhere. Statues collapsing around him. He stopped to buy flowers, confusing Julia completely. Minutes later, he walked into a mysterious building where a security guard shut off the alarm system just to let him through. Inside, Cesar laid the flowers beside his wife's body, tended to gently by a group of women. But when Julia followed him in, she found Cesar completely alone. None of it was real. It was all playing out in his head. Overwhelmed by the depth of his grief, Julia walked away. The next day, Cesar climbed his tower to study the city and jot down notes for his plans, and Julia joined him, asking which institution mattered most in his ideal future. He answered simply, marriage. Over the following weeks, Wow spent more and more time with Hamilton, and the two ended up engaged. On their wedding night, she gifted him his own personal statue. Julia attended with Cesar, who noticed protesters outside holding signs against him but brushed it off completely. Reporters kept pressing him about Megalon's safety, and he kept joking his way past every question, insisting it was completely safe. A pop star named Vesta showed up in a Megalon dress rigged with tiny hidden cameras, making it look invisible. And the crowd adored her for publicly promising to stay chaste until marriage. When Cicero arrived, the whole room booed him. True to New Rome's obsession with the old empire, the party wasn't a normal celebration at all. It was styled like ancient Rome, complete with a chariot race and gladiators fighting for entertainment. Some students interviewed Julia and mentioned rumors were already spreading that she and Cesar were dating. Cesar, meanwhile, spent the night lost in a haze of drinking, smoking, and every substance available. Everything blurring together into something psychedelic. Women flirted with him constantly, and he signed autographs without ever engaging back. Julia trailed him all night trying to keep him in check, without much luck. While a group of eccentric clowns finished their act, Claudio bribed a producer to cue up a video he'd brought with him at exactly the right moment. Then Vesta took the stage to sing while the crowd donated money supporting her chastity pledge. Right in the middle of her performance, Claudio's video hit the big screens, showing Cesar and Vesta caught together in an intimate moment by paparazzi. The crowd exploded in outrage, bodyguards rushed Vesta away before the mob could turn violent, and a fight broke out right there on stage. Cicero tried to give a speech, but nobody listened, and security responded with even more force trying to control the chaos. Signs condemning Cicero eventually made their way onto the stage too. Cesar tried stepping out the back, still hallucinating from everything he'd taken, and a stranger punched him, dragging him into a fight he was in no shape to win. He went down easily. Julia found him and tried getting him out in his car, but police stopped them. Since Vesta turned out to be a minor, Cesar was arrested on the spot and held in custody. Locked in his cell, Cesar tried stopping time and discovered, for the first time, that he couldn't. That same night, Julia went digging through the city archives with a friend and found paperwork proving Vesta had lied about far more than her age. She wasn't even born in New Rome. The next morning, Julia brought Vesta's birth certificate straight to her father, hoping it would clear Cesar. Instead, Cicero destroyed it in front of her, saying Cesar might be innocent by law but not by morals. Furious, Julia stormed off, promising she'd just get another copy made. She went next to Hamilton's house, where Wow met her at the elevator and stopped it cold to threaten her, reminding Julia that Hamilton belonged to her, and so, in her mind, did Cesar. Claudio happened to be visiting Hamilton too, angling to become the bank's heir, though Hamilton already suspected his nephew had orchestrated the humiliating video stunt. Soon the media dug up the truth about Vesta's real age, along with forensic proof the whole video had been fabricated from the start. Once Cesar got out of jail, Julia visited him on top of his tower. He was crushed, having lost his ability to stop time, and finally admitted the truth behind his mental struggles. He hadn't killed his wife, but the guilt of failing to protect her had been eating him alive for years. Julia comforted him, and the moment their hands touched, Cesar found he could stop time again. Then they kissed, and just like that, something new began between them. Weeks passed. Cesar buried himself in his project while spending time with Julia, and at one point, he tried introducing her to his mother, though the old woman's mind was too far gone to understand what was happening. Alone at night, the couple played around with the strange effects of frozen time together. Meanwhile, the lower class grew angrier by the day over all the buildings Cesar kept tearing down to chase his utopia. Claudio, desperate to bring his cousin down, joined the protests to stoke the fire further. Word of his scheme reached Cicero, who quietly told an assistant to deal with it. Then one night, Cicero got devastating news. A falling Soviet satellite was hurtling toward New Rome, and there was no way to stop it. The entire city watched in horror as it crashed down, wiping out huge parts of New Rome in seconds. As awful as the disaster was, it gave Cesar exactly what he needed, a clear path to rebuild without obstacles in his way. He threw himself completely into the work, using his power to glimpse into the future and refine his perfect design. After days of non-stop labor, Julia finally snapped him out of his trance to share big news. She was pregnant. Cesar lit up and wanted to marry her immediately. But Julia turned him down, explaining that his conscience would never forgive him since some part of him still felt married to his dead wife. Sometime later, the couple invited Julia's parents over to their new home, built entirely from Cesar's advanced designs. Cicero and Cesar bickered like children over a card game until Julia had to scold them both, using the moment to announce her pregnancy. Her mother was overjoyed, but Cicero got up and left without saying a word, leaving Julia convinced her own father hated her. Meanwhile, Claudio kept stirring up the poor with more protests and riots against Cesar's vision, especially now that the man Cicero had sent to stop him had died in the satellite disaster, leaving nobody left to rein him in. A few days later, Cicero came to Cesar with a proposal, asking him to end things with Julia in exchange for a signed confession admitting he'd always known Cesar's wife took her own life, yet prosecuted him anyway just to destroy him. He even offered public support going forward. Cesar turned him down flat. Not long after, Wow visited Cesar with her own offer, claiming she could steal the bank from Hamilton and hand it over so they could finally be together. Cesar rejected that too. Furious, Wow retaliated by freezing every one of Cesar's accounts. On the news, reporters kept hammering Megalon's safety, chipping away at Cesar's reputation. Then one night, a kid approached Cesar asking for an autograph, only to shoot him point blank in the head once he got close enough. For hours afterward, Cesar's mind was trapped in a relentless hallucination. Julia rushed him to the hospital, where doctors floated the idea of rebuilding part of his skull using Megalon itself. It came out soon after that Claudio's men had sent the boy, though Claudio himself was furious, since the attempt only made Cesar look like a martyr to the public. The surgery to repair Cesar's skull with Megalon went well, though full recovery would take time. As Julia sat with him through painful hallucinations afterward, Cesar finally told her the truth about the night his wife died. She'd come home wanting to share big news of her own, but something she saw filled her with jealousy, and she ended up taking her own life in the river. The poisoning story had been a lie invented by Cicero the whole time, who had also hidden the fact she'd been pregnant. Cesar had chased after her that night and watched her jump, and it was in the aftermath, trying desperately to save her, that he first discovered the science behind Megalon. As soon as he could walk again, Cesar went straight to Wow to deal with his frozen accounts. She tried threatening him again, but Cesar pulled back his bandages to reveal Megalon now embedded behind his own eye. Stunned, Wow dropped to her knees, begging him to take her back, insisting no amount of diamonds meant anything without his love. Hamilton interrupted them, shocked to learn about the frozen accounts, assuming it was just some paperwork error and promising to fix it immediately. Later, Wow and Claudio met up in private, and while they were together, the lights started cutting out, which Claudio blamed on Cesar's systems draining the city's power. Wow then revealed Hamilton had insisted on a prenuptial agreement, cutting her off from the bank entirely, so she wanted to team up with Claudio for a takeover instead. She even gave him a haircut to make him look more presentable for what came next. When Claudio met with Hamilton again, the old man was proud to see his nephew finally looking like a responsible adult. Following the plan, Claudio asked to become interim CEO to help run the family business. Thrilled to see him taking initiative, Hamilton signed the paperwork immediately, not realizing the contract actually made Claudio full CEO and chairman outright. The betrayal hit Hamilton so hard he suffered a heart attack on the spot. A few months later, once their baby was born, Cesar and Julia married quietly during Saturnalia, the city's version of Christmas. Claudio and Wow kept working together behind the scenes, eventually convincing the board to remove Hamilton from power entirely. Afterward, Claudio rallied the rebels for the biggest riot the city had ever seen, setting fires across the streets. Police couldn't contain it, and after Cicero's public condemnation of the violence fell flat, he fled through the subway with his wife Julia and their baby. Even while cradling his granddaughter, Cicero couldn't stop insulting Cesar, though wanting a better future for the child finally pushed him to agree to support his son-in-law. That same night, Claudio and Wow visited a bedridden Hamilton, who appeared to have something hidden under his sheets. He acted excited to see Wow at first, but when he pulled the blanket back, it was a bow and arrow, and he fired it straight into her heart, killing her instantly. Claudio ran for his life as Hamilton fired arrow after arrow at him. Before anything else, Hamilton announced he was leaving his entire fortune to Cesar's city project. Around the same time, Cesar addressed the public, laying out his true vision, a megalopolis with no classes at all, where even people from the poorest corners of the city would get a real chance to build a future, because every human being mattered. The crowd, moved by his words, finally realized just how badly Claudio had manipulated them. They tracked him and his men down and hanged them in retaliation. By the time New Year's Eve arrived, Megalopolis stood complete. Cesar, Julia, and their daughter joined Cicero and his wife for the celebration. While greeting the crowd, Cesar was stunned to spot his own mother somewhere in the sea of faces. As the countdown hit 0, Cesar and Julia kissed and froze time together one more time. Except this time, their daughter wasn't affected by it either. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button and subscribe for more.